I don't even know what just happened. I think we had some silence before the introduction. We're coming to you live from Orlando, Podfest 23. I'm Matt, founder and CEO of Ticket Time Machine. Just fitting that we do an episode of the Wolff Den while I'm at a Podfest conference. So here we are. Happy to welcome Sam Karliner to the show today. Welcome to the madness that will be this episode.
Thanks, Matt. I'm really excited to be here today with you.
Yeah, so for the people in the audience who don't know who you are, give them a quick intro, and then let's get into it.
Sure. I'm a simple guy who lives up in New York. I'm a lawyer by training, a dad. Started off as a runner, and about 10 plus years ago, got into triathlon, Ironman specifically, and I've been an avid sports fan my entire life, and a competitor, and always enjoyed that. And I learned how to take my passion for sports and my passion for triathlon and, turn it into something bigger and do some fundraising for adoption agency that I'm involved with. That's how we created our family through adoption. And it's just been a really positive journey for me.
Simple and Ironman. I don't think anyone who does Ironman is a simple man, but we'll get into that. Well, let's start with the Ironman, I guess. My brother actually did Lake Placid, was his first full Ironman. He's done some halves. Just in awe at someone who can accomplish something like that. How do you go from just being a runner and someone who enjoys it? My dad enjoyed running. I think he ran the New York City Marathon maybe once. How do you get into doing wanting to do triathlons and then wanting to do Ironman? Because those are all huge leaps. I don't think it's, and maybe you can explain it. It's not like, hey, I played high school basketball. Oh, I'll go play college basketball and I'm good enough, I'll play pro basketball, right? It doesn't work that way.
Right. I mean, you're absolutely correct. For starters, if people don't know, Ironman, or what they refer to as the Ironman distance or full distance triathlon, it starts off with a 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike, and you finish off with a marathon. And as people have asked me, you mean one right after the other? Yes, one right after the other.
And by the way, any of those on their own are incredible accomplishments.
Correct. And like your brother, I started off in Lake Placid. I first became aware of Ironman back in the late 70s, early 80s, when it was, the World Championships were broadcast from Hawaii. At the time, I was a runner in high school. And as you said, I looked at it in awe. Who does that? Like, any one is enough. And how do you do that? And so I had gone through life, a runner, a marathoner, competed in many marathons, New York, Boston, others. And I had become fairly competitive. And I don't know, one day it just popped into my head. What can I actually challenge my body to do? Like, how strong, not just physically, but mentally am I? And that's really how it started. And I said, let's see if I can do this. And just as a side note, I actually signed up for the race, didn't tell anyone, including my wife, for a good 6 to 8 weeks, because I was convinced I was out of my mind.
Yeah. Well, I asked this of others. So we've had a few people who've done marathons and Ironmans. And the crazy thing for me is, like, you don't actually run a full marathon when training for a marathon, or you don't actually do a full any of this, right? I mean, that's crazy to me.
Correct. And in training, you have to learn you have to figure out what your strengths are, but you have to balance it, because you have to remember that everything you're doing from an endurance standpoint is going to benefit the other discipline. So if you go on a long bike ride and then finish off with a run, you're sort of training your body to handle that. And one of the things I learned over the years in triathlon, and it was true in running, but it's much, much more true for me, at least in triathlon, is that a rest day is just as important as a hard training day.
Yeah.
And when you build out your schedule and you're working hard for a training block of a week or 3 weeks, and you take some time off, not off, but recovery work, your body comes back a little stronger. And as you taper down for a race, just like you would taper down for any race, hopefully you've put in enough volume in your training. 100-mile bike rides, running being taking the biggest toll on you. So I would never go a full 26 before a race.
Yeah.
But yeah, as you taper down, especially leading into the week before, you hopefully get that little extra boost to go for 10, 12 plus hours.
It's wild. So 10 Ironmans, and I want to talk about not each one, but I want to talk about what the platform that has given you, which has really boosted what you've done. But 10 years, how much have you improved? How good are you overall? And how much does your training change over those 10 years? Do you have to do a little bit? I know you got to train like crazy, but do you get to do a little bit less because you're seasoned a little bit?
So let me answer that in parts. I've learned a lot. There's been just as your body gets stronger and progresses, mentally, I've learned how to not just approach the race, but the training. And that's improved over time, something I wouldn't have known without that. It's been a great platform for me in raising awareness towards adoption. And as I said, I felt like I could do something bigger with all the time I was putting into this. And there was more to the race than just me. And that's how I got involved in the fundraising for Forever Families through Adoption, located up here in Rye, New York. And it's interesting. I'm 58. So my training has changed. While I wish there were times I could work harder, I need to scale it back. I wish I knew then, right, when I was younger, what I know now, I probably could work harder. So sometimes my workouts are a little easier because I'm a little older and my body needs more time to recover. Sometimes I just have to give myself more of a runway to do all the hard work because I'm a little older, but I can still put in all the effort.
Okay. And your time, I mean, every Ironman is different. Right. It's not like running the same track, but you've cut considerably.
I mean, my first race, the goal was to finish. And I was somewhere in the, I don't even remember, it must have been the high 13s, if not 14-hour range.
And they cut you off at 14 now, don't they?
Actually, they cut you off at 17.
17, okay.
Yeah, 17.
I mean, think about that too. Think about your running. You've done 12, 13, 14, 15 hours, 16 whatever. You've done 17 and they don't let you finish this. I mean, that's obviously for health reason and safety and
health and safety, right?
But imagine like that kind of pushes you a little bit as you're going, because you know where you're at. You know, hey, I'm at this. I gotta pick it up or maintain this. Otherwise, I'm done.
Right, and they have cutoff times in the swim and the various laps on the bike and the run. Yeah. They have that, but I will also tell you that I have been down at finish lines when the race ends at midnight, and at 1:15 in the morning, there's somebody coming through, and people, I don't know how, but we find out, and people go down and cheer them on as much as they cheer on the pros, if not maybe more. It's incredible.
The Olympics, like the bobsled or the track who finished it. It doesn't matter to anyone officially, but it matters to them.
It matters to them. And that's the beautiful thing about triathlon, is that there are so many different stories out there. And I guess that's one of the things that helped motivate me to get involved in fundraising for Forever Families Through Adoption. I was at a race, and like I said, we had gone down probably about 10:30, 11 o'clock. I had a really good day that day. I had a really fast race. And there was this woman coming around after 16 and a half hours, getting close to the cutoff, as you said. And she comes around that last bend. There's 100 yards left. She's got a big smile on her face. She's running.
Sprinting, right?
I come around that bend. I look like crap. All right. And somebody reaches out, hands her a sign. She holds it up, and it says, "I have MS, but MS doesn't have me."
Oh, wow. It's incredible.
It was such a powerful moment and such a powerful statement. Who cares how fast I was, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
talk about who's the winner, right? So that was sort of something that motivated me, that I can, start to use this as a platform for something bigger than me.
And I want to get to the adoption, but last thing on the Ironman, 10 of them, how good are you?
So thanks for asking.
Everyone's always modest about it, but how good are you?
I've
done
gotten
10,
pretty good.
that's a lot.
Right. So I started off, the goal was to finish. Then I started off being fairly competitive, like the top 30. Then the top 20.
That's a big leap.
Right. And a lot of work. And there was a huge learning curve, but a lot of commitment and work to the process. And then, I sort of had this goal of, could I qualify the World Championships in Kona, right? The holy grail, right? And in an age group, from an age group competitor's standpoint, like myself, it's generally, there are several slots per age group, 2 or 3.
Yeah.
I guess you got to finish in the top 2 or 3. And, getting to the top 10 was really hard.
Right.
And 10 to 5, everyone's really good. And once you get above 5, that little piece at the end.
No, they feel like they're close to it, so they want it.
Right. And so the first time I actually qualified for the World Championships back in 2021, I was having a great day. I had moved my way up to about 4th place, and I knew where I was. And I just kept pushing. And then I saw a teammate of mine, who wasn't racing that day, just cheering, saw me with about 2 miles to go, and said, "Dude, you're in 2nd place."
It's wild. It's wild.
Because, you get so caught up with the people, it's hard to remember or hard to pick out who's in your age group. And I just, if there was an ounce of fiber in me, it was working.
I mean, but that's what happens. Your body, your mind, it takes over for some people, and some people they can't get past it, and that is what it is.
I've gotten to be all right. Yes.
All right. Rank your swim, bike, run. What's your best?
Run, bike, swim.
Run, bike, swim. And how about your favorite to do? Is it the same thing, run, bike, swim? If you get rid of one of them, what are you getting rid of? The swim?
Swim.
Nobody likes to swim, right?
Swim. But I've learned to enjoy it. I sometimes enjoy it more in training, just because it can be very peaceful out there. And the swim, I especially remember my first one, it's like being thrown in a washing machine. You've just got arms and bodies everywhere, just kicking you and hitting you, and it's just nuts. But there are times, especially in, depending upon the venue, are you in the ocean or a lake? But sometimes you get to a point where it's just you. I mean, and you're a little separated from people, or, because if I'm swimming and you're like a half body length behind me, I might not know you're there, because I'm looking down, I'm looking ahead.
Oh, you get that in a crowded pool.
Right. And it's quiet. You don't have all the external noise that you have during the run. You can't really hear the crowd. And there's just something sort of peaceful and cool about it. And when you're hitting your stroke and it's working, it just feels great. So swim 3rd, but there are times during it that I'm really enjoying it.
Okay. So you're an attorney.
I am an attorney.
You have an adopted family.
Correct.
You're running Ironmans, and you're doing Ironmans to raise awareness and funds for adoption.
Correct.
So give us the timeline. How does that all come to be?
Timeline of how it started, or timeline of my day?
No, timeline of how that started. Like you obviously were an attorney first, I
Right.
believe.
I was
Did
an
you
attorney.
adopt as you're running?
So I'm an attorney first. When I met my wife, I was already a runner and running.
Okay.
Um, we knew that we had to create our family through adoption, and we did. We have two lovely boys. One of the first gifts my wife bought me was a baby jogger. So my kids were with me as I was training, with me for, they were less than a year old. They were at my first marathon and been to many of my races. Um, I, I am thankful. While I wish I started Ironman earlier, I'm a little thankful that I didn't, because it is such a time drain.
But, yeah. But
So as
timing
my
is everything, also too. With maybe you would have started something different.
Right, that's true. So as they got older, and that's when I sort of got into this, it allowed me to find the time to train without having to remove myself from my family.
Right.
So that was sort of the progression. And now
How
my
many
kids are out of the house. So
how many Ironmans before you said I want to do this for in the name of adoption, raising awareness and
I would
funds?
say one,
Okay,
one,
so it was
because
early.
I just saw other people, using it to help raise awareness for whatever their cause was. And there's this feeling of community and support, that everyone who gets to the starting line is a winner, and there are so many people following you. I almost felt like, as great an experience as the first one was, and as competitive as I wanted to be, and felt like I could get better, I was just missing something, and it was that drawing support and attention to a cause that was important to me that I was missing.
And you started to, did you start the foundation first and then go, or you were just sort of raising the awareness and then started the foundation?
Uh, I would say together. I mean, Ironman helps provide a platform for you to do that.
Yeah.
It's something that they're incredibly supportive of as an organization. They have their own foundation, or you could raise for your specific cause. So they really recognize that it's a platform for people. Um, so with their assistance, I was able to do this, and I had already been involved with Forever Families Through Adoption. So I reached out to them, said I'd like to, do this for you. They were incredibly receptive. Um, and I started out by writing a letter to people and emails and everyone that supports me. So when I race, I write my kids' names on the back of my shoes,
Yeah.
so they're with me while I'm running. That's my thing, and it's not just hokey. It's actually, I kind of draw
No,
inspiration from it.
I think it's great. I think you see that stuff like that, and but
Right,
again, it's meaningful to you.
right. So what I do for people that support me, I have a big Forever Families Foundation sticker that I put on the frame of my bike, and I write everyone's name who has supported me.
Oh, wow.
And I tell them that you're with me during the race, and I mean it, because when you're out there, you addressed it before. When you're out there for 10, 11, 12, whatever the amount of hours is, that's a long day.
Doing anything for that amount, I could imagine just sitting on the couch for 12 hours watching
Right.
television.
I love sports. I couldn't, no matter, I'm a hockey guy.
Yeah.
6 overtimes, it's great, but it's still
Yeah.
less than 10
No.
hours.
Even sleeping, we don't even sleep for that long in a row without our bodies saying, "Hey, maybe do something else right now."
Right. So there's a lot to think about.
Yeah.
Beside, for me, the way I race, I constantly think about the work I'm putting in, and where I am in the race. But there's a lot to think about, and being able to draw that inspiration and look down at my frame going, oh, yeah, Joe and Mary, I'm not really sure who they are,
All right.
but they're supporting me. I better get my butt in gear. Is inspirational.
Yeah. I can imagine. I don't know by experience, but I can imagine. Let's talk about adoption. There's probably a lot of misconceptions and stigmas and stuff around that. So let's talk a little bit about it. Obviously, it's something that's a huge part of your life because you have two boys. It's expensive.
It is. It is. Yes, but
How
believe
does
it.
your foundation that you support help? What does a race supporting this cause do?
So the when somebody supports me in my race, what it primarily is supporting is the education of adoption and the options of adoption to make people more aware. And when I say make people more aware, I'm really splitting it into two groups. So most people think about group one, the adoptive parents like myself, and educating people about, first off, that it is an option, because believe it or not everyone recognizes that.
Yeah.
And it's a wonderful, loving a choice. So it educates people about the fact that it is there, that it is a viable option, and all the pros and wonderful things that come along with it, and how to do it. The second side of it, and I shouldn't even call it the second side, it's 1 and 1A, it's just two different groups of people, is you have the entire birth mother and birth family side,
Right.
because there are a lot of women who, for whatever reason, don't want to terminate a pregnancy, but they recognize that they cannot parent this child for whatever reason that is, and that there is this truly wonderful, loving option out there that doesn't bring the foster care system in, that is not just respectful, but there are many open adoptions nowadays. So it's that money goes to educating those people, bringing those people in, and making sure that people know that this exists and can take advantage of it.
Yeah. I mean, it's being so expensive. There's so many people who would like to adopt. What I mean, if it was less expensive, I think more people would adopt. Less people would get into the foster homes. I think, and obviously, the type of lifestyle that someone lives in a foster home is compared to in a
Right.
home. Which, by the way, not every home is a loving home.
True.
Same way you're adopting a pet, or if you're just giving birth to anyone, it's just
Right.
a
And
lot of it's the luck of the
it's,
draw.
when you talk about the misconceptions, and sort of to address what you were saying, is adoptive parents, and look, no one can ever predict the future, right? I wish we could sometimes. But when people decide that they want to be an adoptive parents, there is a vetting, screening
Yeah.
process, home studies. The people are as best as we can, as opposed to anyone else who's able to get pregnant. No one's vetted, right? No one's screened. No one says, "I think you'll make a good parent." But in today's world, and part of the education is, if you actually go online and you were to Google, grants for adoption, there are organizations out there that will help prospective adoptive parents fund their adoptive process. So while the cost may seem large initially, there are ways to break it down.
I'm at Podfest podcasting, and I think William Hung just walked right in front of me. Remember William Hung?
I do. What was that? That was
She bangs, American. I'm like 99% sure that was just William Hung.
Well, he can be your next. He can be your next guest. But I'm glad you have.
Oh man, I should. So it's actually what you just said is actually in someone's comedy bit about how that we don't vet, and it's true, we don't.
Right.
Probably should try and find, but who knows? Right. Parenting is a struggling thing anyway. Even when you start, you're not no one's a great parent when they start. They kind of ease into it.
And every child has a different personality. Every child has a different need and want. And my kids are grown now, but I'm a different parent now. You never stop. It's just different, and there's an evolution through it, and a different relationship.
This is probably a contentious subject. When do you tell these kids I mean, when did you tell your kids? Did they find out? Did you
I
tell them? How did that happen?
while everyone is different,
Right.
I'm assuming everyone's different. Um, we told our kids probably the day they were born, and we were in the delivery room with them. So adoption was never hidden in our family. We always spoke about it from long before they could talk and
When could they
understand.
comprehend it though? Because I don't remember anything like before I was 7. I don't even know. It's crazy.
I think if you were to ask them, they would probably tell you, yeah, they probably couldn't comprehend or they couldn't have memories of it before they were 5 or 7,
Yeah.
maybe. But it was always the language spoken in our house. Books that they read as 2-year-olds or 3-year-olds.
Yeah.
Not that it was the only thing we did, but it was
No,
always there. And there was
that's
any
smart. That makes sense.
right any questions they had, we always answered. Um, Information about their birth mother, we always gave them, and uh, she wanted contact in the beginning, and then she kind of it was her choice to pull back a little bit and not have as much contact, and we had to respect what she wanted. Um, so it's always there, and it's always been, it's uh, my kids will talk about adoption like you talk about you're a righty or a lefty. It's
I'm ambidextrous.
part of it's just who they are. It's what
He,
makes them them. And it's funny, sometimes I'll be talking to them and they'll say, oh yeah, I was going somewhere and I met this person. Oh yeah, and then they're adopted. I'm like,
it's
how'd
cool,
that
right?
come up? Like, I don't know, we were just talking. I said, I'm adopted. Like, oh, me too.
It's kind of cool. I have my brother, who's my fraternal twin, who runs the Ironman. It's just cool. You find other twins. It's just another thing you have this common bond with that it's not that common.
Right. Absolutely.
Twins are probably more common
So,
than adopted people. But you have 2 sons. Another thing, like you kind of don't get to choose in a way always, right? You kind of just like, look, I want a child. Whatever is available and comes up. Is that true? Is that what happened to you, or can you afford the luxury of really waiting for what you want? If you just want a boy or a girl.
I from the people we just wanted a healthy child.
Yeah, I mean that's what everyone says.
Right.
Sure.
And the I guess the best way to answer that is that ultimately it's the adoptive parent's choice of what they go through and how much information they're given, meaning that there are some, when I'm working with Forever Families for Adoption here in New York, I should say, sometimes they have a lot of medical information and background history. Sometimes it's limited.
Yeah.
So the people have the choice, but I have been involved, or I have seen so many adoptive parents. The child may be born, maybe drug addicted.
Yeah.
The child may be born multiracial.
Yep.
A whole host of other things. They don't care. And one of the things that Forever Families to Adoption really stresses when they're working with families or works with the families on is not just what their needs are, but this is a child. This is a child that needs a home, and when you look at, I hate to use the legal phrase of the best interest of the child, but if they can provide it. Last summer, there was a child born, a Down syndrome child born, and the birth mother chose this family like within hours of delivery. It was like a last minute thing. And the family got the call like that, got on a plane, came to New York. And
that's a special kind of people. And mostly you'll find that probably in the ones who do want to adopt.
Right.
Because as good a person as sometimes I think I might be, that's a difficult road.
That's a difficult road taken. All right. Absolutely. Absolutely. But so there are a tremendous amount of people out there who are very loving and open. They don't see race the way other people see it.
I'm more for selfish in my time. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I don't have children. I'm very open and honest about it, and everyone knows me. I'm selfish with my time, and I go away a lot for things that are fun, for personal. I also, my work takes me away, and
Right.
that's a tough situation for a kid. It doesn't matter if they're adopted or not, but if you are adopted as a kid, I would imagine you probably have, you're starting to think about what's going on with things. Like, is it because I'm adopted? Is it because who knows?
Right. And look, it's some of those things. I know, look at Ironman races. I am, as I said, well, I'm amazed when I see young families, mom or dad are racing and you've got 3 kids under 10 in tow. Uh, and, maybe they cheer for mom or dad, maybe they don't, but they're having a great time. And it turns into, part of the family vacation and what the family does.
Yeah, I mean, it's
So,
almost like I don't know, say, is it, there's probably some, like, for a divorced family getting together for the good of the family, and just like, so you could have some probably have a relationship with an adopted family. I mean,
right,
especially as you get older, it's like
right.
people want to know. I don't know if I would want to know, but maybe I would. I guess it depends. I mean, you probably have some information for them as to, like, look, it just wasn't, I couldn't handle it.
I have information, and most of it they have. If they ever ask,
Yeah.
there's more, and
I meant
they're
people in general, but
right, and there are people in general. Look, I know that there are, and I've worked with people who have, as adult adoptees, they want to know who their birth parents were. Not they're not calling them their parents. They're not the people who raised them, but there's this curiosity of who they are. Who gave birth to me, and they conduct a search and they meet them. And I've met people who have very positive results, very positive experiences when they meet them, and it runs the entire gamut. You're meeting a person 20, 30, 40 years later that made a decision that was appropriate for them at that time.
yeah. The interesting thing, about adoption too, is that you just never know what's going to happen. And so when you choose to adopt, there's a lot of negative and bad things that people know from experience that could happen, and you got to find a way to navigate that. Or it's just like having a good or a bad child, good or bad, whatever that means to you. You just don't know.
Right.
And you have to have that feeling. I would think that a regular birth parents would have. Like, this is my child. I don't care
Right.
if they're adopted or not. This is my child.
And I think, certainly from my experience, all the adoptive parents I know have that experience. It's my child. It's never my adopted child. It's my child. It's in the beginning, you use the word stigma that might surround it. I don't know, I wouldn't call it a stigma, but when things happen in our world, everybody looks for the one thing that's different. They
Yeah,
attach it to that, and that must be the reason.
yeah,
And over the years, you hear that, but you also hear things in the world where somebody grew up in an incredibly wealthy home, right? And they
yeah,
wound up doing X.
yep,
Or people that ran the gamut. Look at in the sports world, which you deal with a lot. You have world class superstars that were born into a sports family and had every opportunity in the world. And then you have world class superstars that were born with zero
no, they
and
make
rose to the same
themselves.
level.
Yeah. I want to talk about Roe v. Wade, because it's sort of hand in hand with adoption. Was people say, well, don't get an abortion, just go through with it. And there's many parents who want to do that. Has there been a push since whatever happened? I guess, was that a year ago? Man, time is flying here.
Time flies, especially when you factor in the pandemic.
Yeah. Do you guys have any type of conversation around that? Is that especially around education?
Well, I think there is a push in education in the more favorable states and states that haven't ruled out abortion. about the possibility of adoption and that being a viable option, especially for women that find themselves having to travel to different states or, hide what they're doing because there are potential criminal charges pending out them. Some of the states out there are really taking it to the next level. Personally, I believe women should have the right to choose. All right. And I respect whatever their decision is. I don't think that's something where the government can step in.
No, I agree.
Am I extremely grateful that my children's birth mother did not choose adoption,
No,
did
right, of
not choose
course.
abortion? Absolutely. Right. That's so I was, for
But
that,
does the average person who's going through that thought and process really know about their options? That's what it sounds like. Maybe no, maybe it's 50-50.
and I don't know, Matt, the exact statistics, but that's what has helped drive me to do what I do for Forever
Yeah,
Families to Adoption is to educate people. So, everyone knows about Planned Parenthood and what they show there. And I do believe that they have some adoption literature, but I think it's more abortion literature.
yeah, yeah.
I'm not positive on that one though. But
It's weird. Why is that?
right, I don't know, right, whose agenda? But I know what Forever Families to Adoption does is they're constantly reaching out to hospitals and social workers in hospitals because you'd be so surprised that the social workers in the hospital, they don't know. So sometimes you get a woman who's sometimes in labor or sometimes, in her last month or two, and they're showing at the hospital for a physical or they're in labor, and they in their mind, they know they don't want to keep the child, but there's no one there to guide them. And so the outreach that we do is not just to educate the birth mother, but it's to educate the staff that she's going to come in touch with. And when those social workers at the hospital know, they can speak to the woman and say, look, you love this child. You want the best for this child. There's a loving option out there. And let's discuss it. I'll put you in touch with these people. We'll make a phone call and you'll learn. And so educating, it's more than just the birth mother to educate. It's the doctors, the
You
social workers, and everyone else involved.
you have any idea how many families you've had a hand in bringing adoption to their lives?
I I honestly couldn't tell you. I know every month the organization Forever Families to Adoption goes out and runs informational sessions, and people are always contacting them online and on the phone. So I know that the work I do helps to fund those programs. So
How much money do you raise in an Ironman run?
I am able to raise about $10,000, so a little bit more, and
And
my
that's
hope, Matt,
increased over the
my
years.
hope, Matt, is because you have such a wide viewership base
Yeah.
out there, people will hear me, and I'll be able to bump that number up.
Well, we're going to try. Not yet, but we will. The good thing about this is we're going to split it up and we're going to throw it and we're going to be huge, but
Awesome.
maybe not yet. Um,
It's like your
and
first
what is the
Ironman race.
yeah what does the average of adoption cost?
Start to finish, you're probably in the. I'll give you a wide range of 25 to $50,000.
Yeah, I'm just
Which
curious
sounds
if
like a
like in a
lot, unless you're
yeah
buying a car
yeah or a house.
or a
Nice
house.
car. 25, I guess. I asked that because I'm thinking maybe like for a race, does anyone think to say, well, let's fund an adoption for a family with funds, you know,
Like, like,
once a
like
year? I don't know.
that's an interesting thought. Maybe
Yeah,
I'll talk to
yeah.
them and
Because it's tough to like, and the reason I say that is because, and you probably, I want to hear how it's happened over the years. Like you've it's been easier for you to raise money. You're a better runner. You're more profile. You've done it before, as opposed to the first couple of times you did it. And people, where is this money going to? So when you say, hey, for $375 you could feed 10 families. I know that's ridiculous, but
right.
people, it's so tough out there. We have a lot of charities on the Wolff Den, and the question I ask is, how do you get visibility and people to want to give money to you as opposed to cancer, which everyone's, something that's touched everyone's
Right.
lives and stuff like that. So what are your thoughts around that?
Well, I think it's, in many ways, it comes down to 6 degrees of separation, that by me speaking about it, inevitably, I wind up speaking to somebody who somehow is connected to adoption, either directly or indirectly. And they tell someone, and it just goes from there. I was on a panel that the Ironman Foundation ran where people were speaking. This is back in 2013. People were speaking about their charities that they were raising money for. And I was fortunate enough that Ironman featured me at this panel discussion. And the person sitting next to me, it was July of 2013, so it was just a few months after the Boston Marathon bombing, and I had run that race. Fortunately I finished a good hour plus before the race. My kids were literally standing right where the bomb went off an hour before it happened, and he was raising money for the officer who worked at MIT who tragically died during the chase. And everyone's looking at this guy like, oh my God, he's amazing. And everyone else tells their story. And at the panel discussion was over, and he comes up to me and he sticks out his hand. He shakes my hand. He says, "Thank you for what you're doing." And I'm looking at him going, "You're thanking me? Really?" Like the whole world knows about this event. And he said, "As you were speaking, all I was doing was looking at my 8-year-old son sitting in the first row, and he's adopted." So I wear on my jersey that when I run the races, it says Forever Families to Adoption. I've had people either that I'm passing or passing me not stop, but cheer me on because of it. I've had people ask me questions during the race.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I asked that question, and then if you are adopted, if you've adopted a kid, certainly something that you're going to be passionate about. But if you have a child, if you haven't been able to have a child, if you haven't been able to adopt, these are all things to say, look, I've been blessed to be able to have a family, and I want other people to be able to have that feeling who really want to, because I think when you really want to do something like that, it's selfless in a way. And maybe it's selfish too in a way, but it's selfless in a way to have to be a parent. I think that gets attention too, but it's difficult because there's a lot of stuff out there for people to give their time and their money.
And I think you're right. I think when I speak to people, especially people that have families that did not go through adoption, they recognize, hopefully, the joy that it's brought to them. But it's something that if they can play a small role in passing that life experience, that wonderful life experience along to somebody else, that helps them support me. And they get a lot out of it.
And then you have I was on a call with my friend yesterday, and in a 5-minute span, his 8-year-old son called him a dummy twice in a yelling kind of way.
Oh, yeah.
That's the beauty of it, right?
It is. It's run faster, Dad. Why are you so slow? How about this one? Did you win?
Yeah. He wasn't racing. He was picking him up from school, but that's a different story. What kind of law do you practice? We didn't touch on that.
I am a criminal defense attorney.
Oh.
Yes.
My wife would like to talk to you. She loves. She can't get enough of the crime television. She watches court TV all day long for these things, and I'm like, I don't know how you watch this. I did watch a Dateline last night while I was in the hotel.
Okay.
Have you always been criminal defense?
When I started off as a prosecutor. Did that for a few years, and kind of switched sides a little bit. I love being a trial attorney. I love being in court. And I think our criminal justice system is one of the best ones out there.
Really?
Far from perfect, but when you compare it to other countries, where citizens from your community are going to decide, right? Not a judge, not somebody who has special education.
Yeah.
People from your community are going to decide, and if the government can't prove their case against you, that's it.
Yeah, it's wild. But being a defense attorney, is how. I mean, I watch a lot of movies, and that's where you get a lot of that. Good bat. Oh, can you hear me?
I know you clipped out.
That when you start to talk about like some people like they don't want to know if they're guilty or not. Like if they are, don't tell me. Like,
Yeah,
I mean, some of them are guilty, right? And you're still defending them.
right. So
you're just trying to get the best possible outcome for them, or
right. I mean, look, I think one of the reasons our system works is because if you're going to be punished, the government needs to prove you responsible to a certain standard.
right?
And before we take away somebody's liberty and freedom, that standard better be met.
Yeah, but I got to imagine, like, you're a family guy, you've adopted. I got to imagine, like, if there's a criminal thing and it involves someone's family, and like, your job is to get someone maybe in a better situation than they might deserve. Because my biggest problem in the world is that there's not enough deterrent for bad behavior. That's my that's whether or not we talk about someone with a murdering someone, or you're stealing money, you're defrauding, all of this stuff. It's just, it always feels like a slap on the wrist. And there's thousands of people doing it. And I'm like, I don't think we should do capital punishment, but I think if the punishment was enough for things, people would stop doing it. What do you think about that?
Unfortunately, I think over the years, what I've seen is
it's
that,
okay if you disagree.
I was going to say, unfortunately, what I've seen over the years is that a severe punishment does not necessarily deter crime. And not just from that person, but from future crime. Everyone always thought that if we lock somebody up for a long time, the next guy's not going to do it. That hasn't worked. And then you've got some places. I mean,
there's studies on that.
What I see every day, yeah. Just because my buddy gets locked up for X, maybe it's a deterrent for me today, but it doesn't seem to be a long-term deterrent. However,
that's the recidivism, whatever that is.
Yeah, recidivism. But what you're talking about is, when you're lenient, well, they're just going to take the slap on the wrist, not, and say, screw it, I'll just do it again.
It's worth it. Well, let's talk about sports. I mean, why are these people doing steroids?
Right.
So we're getting $100 million contract.
Right. So I think there's what we're starting to see in certain areas is much more of a balance where there's a jail punishment or jail alternative and education, and sort of a blending of the two. Right. The steroid era. Look at the whole Conseco bonds thing. Everyone was juicing, so everyone figured why not. Or you look at Lance Armstrong and the Tour de France. Well, everyone was doing it then, and now people are seeing that they've cracked down on it. That with hard work, people are starting to hit some pretty good numbers. Right. Look at this year. Right. Look at Judge.
Yeah.
Clean. Right. What a year.
Well, who knows? Maybe next year we'll find out he was doing something he shouldn't. I don't know.
I hope not.
I hope not.
seems like a really good guy, right?
I think there is still not enough deterrent for bad behavior. And I think if it's done fairly and correctly, maybe, I don't know. Bad people are going to want to do bad things, but there's, as we see in the stories that come out, it's a lot of it is not bad people. They weren't bad people. They were good people who did bad things, right? Big difference.
Right.
And I think that's what you're trying to curb.
Right. I would agree with you. And it also goes back to what you were talking about before, when you talked about this sort of this vetting process of parents.
Yeah.
When I sometimes sit down and look at somebody that's been convicted or accused of a crime, regardless how they present it, 18, 22, 32, the kid probably had a really cute little backpack on when they were 4, going to the first day of kindergarten, right? Yeah. So where did things break down? And sometimes maybe the programming in our society doesn't need to be, once the crime's been committed, but maybe a little more energy and resources, at the front end. And let me just add, Aaron Judge, adopted.
Really, I didn't know
yes.
that. That's cool. So I stood.
Right?
He was at the.
And this thing, people don't know it. People
He was at a
don't necessarily wear it on their
party I
sleeve.
watched. I'm
You clipped out on me.
Can you hear me? I think we're back. All right.
Now, I'm telling you, for a podcast conference, they need to have better Wi-Fi there.
Yeah, you would think. I don't know. What's going on here? I want to ask you about your thoughts on Brittany Griner, because this is something. Full disclosure, I've said before, I've never smoked anything in my life. I probably right now would say I think we need to make marijuana legal everywhere, because they bring someone back what she did. I just, it's, people are locked up for this stuff, and it's like, how do you not, like, how do you punish people now when you went to such lengths to bring her home, and what she did was illegal there?
Right. I mean, I think her
It's almost like the
situation.
adoption, like abortion too. Like, you can't put it to the states. I mean, people are going to go to this other state. Now you have money and risk. There's just so many risks. It's like these are certain things that I think. I'm not saying the government should do, but if anyone's going to make decisions, it's got to be all over. Marijuana, right. Probably gambling, and probably abortion are like the three that make sense to me to be either all or none.
So her situation, I agree with you. I mean, it was awful, and it was clearly, there was so much politics involved in it. But we've seen over the years now, more last 5 years especially, that the states are recognizing that low-level marijuana, especially when they look at it from the communities that they come from, with the high volume of arrests and prosecutions, times have changed, and it's being deemed a non-criminal offense, a non-arrestable offense. Here in New York, they've dismissed or wiped clean older people's records from having that, so they don't have to apply for a job and have a criminal conviction show up.
All right, so what do we say to the people who are in jail now for it? I mean, I have mixed feelings, because look, it was at the time, it was right. Illegal, and you knew that. It's not that hard to follow the law and follow rules. But now it's like it's a touchy situation.
Right, it's a touchy situation. I think it's twofold. Is that people are looking at it as, in today's society, it's more acceptable, and they're also looking at it as disproportional enforcement in lower socioeconomic areas and certain demographics where it may have been enforced more than it was enforced in other places. So there really wasn't a sense of fairness and equity there. The people that you still see being arrested are the people that are, and to your point, I guess, that are dealing in high volume, high weight. So the laws haven't changed there. And I got to be honest, I have mixed feelings. Like you said, if it's not, why can't people follow the rules? On the other hand, there are those who are going to argue the reason the person dealing 5 pounds of marijuana gets arrested isn't because they were dealing 5 pounds of marijuana. It's because the state-approved dispensary wasn't selling it, and the state getting its tax from it. And I say that as a criminal defense attorney, I'm not pro. I don't smoke.
No, I get it. I'm not. It's a numbers game by all this stuff.
Right, but and that's sometimes the pull between the athlete in me, the parent in me, just me who I am. I'm not endorsing. I'm not saying do it, but I think you have to, as you said, take
probably not a lot of Ironman people smoking weed.
Yeah, I don't know what that's
more than you would think, though. Maybe I don't know.
And look, you would see, and you talk to a lot of sports people and around sports all the time. The whole concept of CBD oil nowadays, oh my God, it's marketed everywhere. Yeah. Runners, swimmers, this, that, training techniques, recovery techniques.
I remember I was in college, and I saw that this star player for the football team smoking cigarettes out at the bar, and I'm like, what? Tobacco and cigarettes? It's nuts.
Right. It's
that was 30 years ago, 25 years
ago. and different people learn different
I
ways of
find
how
it.
their body
Are you still
responds.
here? Did we freeze you here? I know we're running
Yeah,
towards the end of here.
you froze a little, but I'm doing all right. Look, the same is true with alcohol. Look, heavy alcohol consumption uh, can
Yeah,
dehydrate you and make it that much harder to
we
perform well the
are.
next day.
Here we are. I'm going to show you. We're live. We're live from Podfest here in Orlando, and I got confirmation. We're we're live from Podfest in Orlando. I got confirmation that was William Hung here in Orlando. So we're gonna give best love. It's crazy. I don't know what's going on here. We got the Expo Hall in an hour or so. Let me get my camera back here. This is your amateur podcasting stuff. All right, we're back. That's funny. I
Awesome.
asked you about, you said healthy baby and all that. And look, everyone wants that, but everyone has a favorite. Everyone has a choice. I'm a huge family guy. I'm not going to ask you to tell yours, but I'm a huge family guy. And one of my favorite scenes in Family Guy is when they did a flashback to Peter running into the into the hospital room with Lois giving birth. And he's got like all football and basketball. Have you seen it? And it's
Yeah.
a girl, and he's, oh crap.
Oh,
That's one of my favorite
yeah.
one of my favorite scenes. Would you're back to the criminal defense? Do you ever not take a case because you don't want to have to defend this person? Do you have the luxury of that? I mean, if
Well,
it was OJ, if it was Casey Anthony, if it was, I don't know, anyone else who everyone was guilty, but.
I mean, I've been doing this over 30 years now. I'd say there were maybe one or two cases that I didn't take in my career just because there was perhaps something that I just couldn't get past after meeting with the client and discussing things with them.
Yeah.
Just what wrong
Do you
vibe.
believe that? You believe that just because you're not guilty doesn't mean you're innocent?
I do not.
You don't
I do
believe
not.
that?
No. Yeah, they're two different standards. So a jury needs to convict somebody beyond a reasonable doubt.
Oh no,
If the
that's what I was
government,
asking. If you believe that you can be not guilty and
not innocent.
yeah, correct.
Yes, because innocent,
Got it.
to me, innocent means that I've
All right.
proven something. Not
Right.
guilty means the government just didn't meet their standard, right?
Is that okay? I mean, I guess they didn't meet the standard. Maybe it was a bias. Maybe it was an incompetent. Maybe it was a corrupt. I mean, that's a tough pill to swallow with some of the people that are walking the streets. Is it not?
yeah, but if I'm down a run and I'm the last, I got 2 outs, bottom of the ninth, and I crush it to left field, and I'm round third and I'm looking great, but I'm thrown out at the plate. I didn't hit a home run, right? I fell short and I lost the game.
Yeah. I'm not crazy about that analogy because
it was the
consequence.
It was the best I could come up with, but
no, I know, just the consequence.
But the point is, if the government is going to take away your liberty, if the government's going to put you in jail 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, rest of your life, depending upon the charge, they got to do it right. And that's why, remember at the beginning I said I think our system is one of the best ones out there? That's why, because if 12 people, right? No, so take somebody with your feel, take what you just said, and you're on the jury, and you're sitting in the jury room, and you go, he probably did it, but they didn't prove it, and you respect the system and you follow the law, it's not easy being a juror. And I have a lot of respect for the people that step up to the plate and do it.
I agree with that. I agree. What was your favorite Ironman course?
I am a New Yorker. I love the mountains, and it was my first one, and it was the great course I qualified for Kona on. So it is Lake Placid. I tell people Lake Placid. I tell people to swim in Lake Placid is uphill. It's a hilly course.
My brother will love that answer.
Yeah, it's hope he does it again. I'll
cool area too. I mean, that's
Beautiful area, and you know what?
I don't know if he's going to do another Ironman.
It's got such a tremendous vibe. I've been to so many different cities, where at the finish line it's exciting. It's a great crowd, and other places it's a great crowd. But once you walk away and you get into town, it's another day. If you've ever been to like the New York City Marathon, oh my God, the finish line in Central Park,
Yeah.
you know, tens of thousands of people. You walk 4 blocks outside the park, it's just another Sunday. Why are you wearing shorts wrapped in a blanket? Like in Lake Placid,
Yeah.
that town, that community, the extended town, it is all about sports. It is all about outdoors, and the Olympics is in their blood. And they just welcome the athletes. They support the race. It is for days before and after. It is nothing but support for the athletes and the spectators.
Is there a location you didn't do that you would love to have done or do?
That I didn't do.
Is there a location you wish that you would like to do that you've never done?
Yes, I think I'd like to get out. I'd like to go to Switzerland. Talk to my wife about that one. I think that's a really beautiful area. Yep, I can hear you. Now you're cutting out a little bit.
If you weren't going to do adoption, what other cause? Let's say you never adopted. Do you have a sense of another cause that is dear to you?
I think probably drug rehab.
Okay.
I think
friends, family.
Right. That's something that has affected my family, and something that I'm very involved in also. Okay. And I think there's a really bad stigma that comes across with that. It's a disease that people suffer from, and it's such a stigma that it at times, I think the stigma is so strong it almost prevents the person that's suffering with the addiction from reaching out, and it is such a stigma.
We've had people addicted. It's terrible.
Right, but I think the other thing that people at times fail to realize, because so oftentimes you hear people talk about their addiction and their recovery, and what you don't hear a lot about is the families of the person of addiction and the families of those that have been affected by the disease, how they have gone through their recovery process. And because there is such a stigma, no one wants to go out and say, I raised an addict, my spouse is an addict, this is an addict. I think helping to break down the walls on that would be very meaningful to me.
Yeah. So many good causes out there. Normally I'm in my office and I am on my computer and I could scroll the guest information down below. I'm on my phone and wasn't able to do that here. So tell everybody where they can get more information about what you're doing, more information about adoption and the foundation.
So the name of the organization is Forever Families Through Adoption. Like I said before, located in Rye, New York, and their website is foreverfamiliesthroughodoption.org. And on that site, you'll see a link to...
Say that again?
foreverfamiliesthroughodoption.org. And on their website, you'll see a link to me, my story, my training, my fundraising, any information that somebody may be interested in, whether they are a birth mother, a family connected to a birth mother looking to place a child for adoption or considering an adoption plan, adoptive parents. There's a lot of information there, education and outreach.
Is that it on the bottom? Did I get it right? Forever Families for Adoption and then foreverfamiliesforadoption.org?
Through adoption.
Through. I was just going to ask you, did you say through or did you say for?
I said through.
Yeah, I think so. Well, let's edit that.
So I'm impressed with your multitasking, producing, directing, and everything at once.
Through spelled out or with the U?
Spelled out.
Yeah. No, it's not my first time on location. The first time I did on location was at the Field of Dreams game in Iowa, and I had to go
Cool.
into this cafe. I was in this cafe, and it was a little loud, and the waitress kept coming up to me, asking me if I wanted another drink, and but it was a great conversation. That was for another charity that day. Really appreciate your time here, and looking forward to contributing and try and find a way to get involved. It's a great cause. My brother, who's an Ironman, used to run for Fuck Cancer, and I'm a Same Here CEO, so I champion for mental health with the Same Here organization, and that is ticking on the bottom. And he started a Same Here endurance team. Just applied for a spot in the New York Marathon, got denied. It was our first attempt, but hopefully he will get in another time. And so I think it's great to do for good, right? You're going to do it anyway. Yeah. I think everyone should raise money for some cause, and there's so many good causes out there.
Because there's always something bigger than what we're doing out there.
So
tell your brother to
shoot me a text. We're going to let you out of the Wolff Den with the same question everybody gets. I don't know why it's not changing to the bottom here. There we go. You can spend a day with anyone. I will. You can spend a day with anyone in the world, 24 hours. They have to be alive. You can't be related to them. Who are you choosing, and what would you guys do?
They have to be alive?
Have to be alive. It's too easy if they're not.
I would spend a day with Sugar Ray Leonard.
Sugar Ray Leonard.
Yeah.
We had his son on the show.
Did you really?
Ray Leonard Jr. Yeah.
Yeah, just a really
great choice.
Interesting upbringing, career as a young fighter, the way he held himself throughout his career. I think it'd be fascinating. Yeah, Abraham Lincoln, if it could be Abraham Lincoln, if it could be dead.
If they're dead, Abraham Lincoln. Not the first boxer. I think Tyson has been on there, maybe Muhammad Ali, but another great all-timer in the boxing world. And so I'll tell his son you said that. I'll share the clip for you. You never know what's going to happen. Are you set for another Ironman?
Right now I'm putting together my schedule for the upcoming year. I had a little bit of an injury last year, so I'm in the middle of rehab and getting ready for this year.
All right, well, stay tuned. Forever Families for Adoption. That's www.foreverfamiliesthrough.adoption.org. Sam Karliner, we're going to follow you and send people your way, and hopefully generate some donations and generate some people. We'll be back in the Wolff Den next week, and we'll talk to everyone soon. Have a great weekend. Have a great night, and do something good.
Thank you, Matt. It's great being here.
All right. I think we're Wi-Fi.